Good evening, I'm Alan Jackson and welcome to Nashville. We begin tonight with something that touches nearly every American, immigration and the consequences of the fact that there was no border for the past 4 years. Well, the good news is that the border's now closed, thanks to the work of President Trump's team and the emphasis that he put on America's safety. No one is against immigration, but almost everyone wants legal immigration and not a free-for-all. It'll take years to clean up the mess that the former president and his hapless security chief caused. I don't even like to think of the number of times Alejandro Mayorkas claimed that all was well. Remember how he stuck to his story regardless of what we were all watching at our border? Listen.
The border is closed. The border is secure. The border is secure. The border, we are working to make the border more secure. It is my testimony that the border is secure, and we are working every day, day and night, to increase its security.
You know, he kept saying that even as the video showed people from China, Mexico, Haiti, Iran, and Africa streaming in. And then the pictures of them being loaded on buses and planes and taken throughout the country so that we, the taxpayers, could pay for their hotel rooms and their meals. Well, Tom Homan has put together a team that's rapidly catching the worst of those who came in, but no one even knows if 12 million or 20 million eventually came. ICE is on the clock day and night and often working in some rather dangerous circumstances, not only up against gang members and armed criminals, but protesters throwing rocks, firing weapons, and doing whatever they can to push back. But amid all the turmoil, there are businesses that still need to run. Large businesses and many small businesses that have been dealing with this dysfunction for years now. That brings me to our guest tonight, the chairman of the Border Commerce and Security Council and chairman of Balido and Associates, Nelson Balido. Welcome back to our show.
It's great to be with you once again. Thank you for having me.
Well, before we get into the details, tell us how things are for you and your clients overall. We're 6 months into the new administration in Washington. How's it going?
Well, you know what? It's going well. There's a lot of opportunity for companies that I've worked with for many years now to work with Border Patrol, with U.S. Customs, with the Air and Marine, with ICE and others that are actually getting some traction now that we had the recent bill that passed that gave more funding to border enforcement and apprehensions throughout the United States to ensure looking at how we are moving cargo, how we are moving passengers and so forth. I think with this passage, they're working on more secure infrastructure that I think will not only move more legitimate trade and travel, but certainly cut the illegitimate trade and travel.
Well, you're in Mexico today, but you're based in San Antonio. Your organization deals with issues north and south. You advise Homeland Security as well. You know, I realize that you're on the business side of things, but what's the most important part of this huge problem that we should be addressing now? Is it, as Tom Homan has said, capturing and evicting the criminal element?
Yeah, well, certainly that is it. We have to disrupt criminal organizations south of the border and really also within our borders that have been cropped up more than anything over the last 4 to 5 years. I will say that. So we need to absolutely have ICE on board, but we need to have more emphasis and more cooperation south of the border with our other countries and partners to ensure that they're enforcing regulations with the United States assistance, sharing intelligence, sharing training opportunities, and so forth to ensure that they have the right equipment, the right personnel, the right training to disrupt these criminal organizations. If not, all we're doing is just spinning on wheels. You know, we got to get past just the seizing of fentanyl, the seizing of cocaine, of marijuana. When we stop seizing those things, that means we're winning. That means because they're running out or don't have any. By disrupting those criminal gangs that don't just, you don't just stop them on one end and then just go manufacture more on the other end. That's where we're going to see real wins. We need to disrupt them to the point where they can no longer function the way they're functioning today.
You've got a tricky path to follow on the business side of things. There's so many businesses that have been running on the manpower who are here temporarily. But you've got other pressures to deal with, such as unemployed Americans who are being pushed aside for cheaper immigrant labor. How do you address that with both Homeland Security and your business clients?
Well, I think you look at you have to look at the areas and where people want to work. Certainly, most of these jobs that are available that perhaps others don't want to go work there are folks that that just simply rather have other jobs. So what you need to do is increase migrant workers. And what I mean by that is the legal migrant workers, migrant worker visas, things like that, where we can track these people, where they can come in for 3 months, work certain jobs that we perhaps can't get other people to work, and leave. Not stay, not get hotel rooms, not get credit cards, not make this a permanent home. There's ways to do that. And like you said before, no one's against immigration. We're just against illegal immigration. So by doing these pathways to help not only manufactured goods, but also the farm worker, that helps. And I'll also say, keep in mind that all the U.S. corporations that we have south of the border that are operating, that are employing hundreds of thousands of Mexican nationals and others, are people that are staying off the streets. So the more that we look at how do we improve the entire quality of life on both sides of the border, increase our business opportunities as companies leave China, I think that's, you give people jobs, well, they get busy doing jobs instead of busy doing something else or nefarious, which is what we've seen, especially over the last 4 to 5 years, increased crime everywhere.
Well, I'd like to ask you about a hot button issue right now. The people who are here illegally, harvesting marijuana in the big fields of California, with the governor trying to protect them and the mayor of Los Angeles taking on ICE directly. Mayor Karen Bass has gone to court to try to stop the raids. Gavin Newsom seems to be looking for an issue to help push his presidential ambitions. Aren't they on the wrong side of public opinion, even for California?
You know what? They're absolutely on the wrong side of public opinion, because this is, if you look at who voted for Donald Trump, overwhelmingly every swing state, the popular vote. So yes, of course they're on the wrong side, because they're not enforcing. They're offering sanctuary state to these people. You got to remember, why do they want to do this? There's a background to this. What is it? Well, what I believe, and I think a lot of other people believe, is they want to increase the population numbers in the state, in these areas that a lot of people have fled, because the census that comes around every 10 years counts people, not U.S. citizens, and that's how they determine congressional districts. And those congressional districts mean a lot for the state, for money and and power. So if they can do that by increasing these sanctuary cities, by having 20-30% more than they would normally have, it's a windfall for them. That's why I think Congress should pass a bill that says that in the future we're only going to count U.S. citizens or U.S. permanent residents on the U.S. Census, not people that really should not be there to start off with.
Well, Nelson Balido, would you please stay with us for another segment? We got several more things to discuss.
Sure, absolutely.
And during the break, I'd like you at home to go to ajnow.com. You can send us your thoughts on the immigration issues, or even call up a recent show to watch, or send to a friend. We'd love to have you help spread the word. We'll be right back. I'd like to extend a personal invitation to join us for our Culture and Christianity Conference. It's September the 19th and 20th on our campus here at World Outreach Church, just outside of Nashville. We've chosen 3 specific topics to explore with a wonderful group of guests. We're going to talk about the church and our expected impact in this culture, the media and their impact in our culture, and then finally, our health, how we can be healthy in the midst of all these competing voices we're hearing. The real goal is how we take our faith and integrate it in our world so we have better lives, stronger families, and strengthen our nation. Join us for Culture and Christianity here in Murfreesboro. Well, welcome back. We're talking with one of the top advisors to Homeland Security and the chairman of the Border Commerce and Security Council, Nelson Balido. You've been working on behalf of the business leaders on the border for a long time now. But Karen Bass, the LA mayor, thinks she knows better. Mind you, this is the same mayor who was missing in action overseas and had weakened the fire department by cutting their budget by $17 million, even as she knew the fire hydrants were dry. Well, now she's ordered city departments to enhance the sanctuary city services and is working on a cash card aid program. Listen to her latest idea.
We also are going to have a reinstitution of the Angelino card, something that Mayor Garcetti started during COVID, that will actually provide cash assistance to people. Because, you know, you have people who don't want to leave their homes, who are not going to work, and they are in need of cash.
As if there haven't been enough handouts the past 4 years, can you help explain what she's up to?
You know, these handouts, you know, look, I'm all for giving a helping hand, but handouts are too much. This is absolutely the wrong way to do things. Who pays for this? Ultimately, the taxpayer does. The people of Los Angeles County, they have to float the bill. That's an outrage for everybody that's working and paying taxes and supporting people that just don't want to do this. Remember, Karen Bass, she was the lady that ran around with Fidel Castro back in the late 50s, early 60s, praising his glory and as part of the communist movement in the United States, you know, and with numerous pictures from Cuba. You know, she's the modern Jane Fonda. And I will tell you, the problem that you have here is that that's what she's doing. It's a social program to try to get her reelected or others elected, that you get them addicted to the dole. And that's unfortunate, because everybody else pays the price.
Well, in LA, New York, Boston, and even here in Nashville, ICE is up against Democratic mayors who are stoking citizens to push back on the authorities. What do you say when you remind them that their businesses are suffering and their tax base is going to take a hit? They seem clueless.
They seem clueless. And I'll tell you, these when they have these protests and they start vandalizing their own communities, that small store that used to service that community no longer comes back. Now they have to go somewhere else. That pharmacy, that corner pharmacy that you just looted because you got out of control, that pharmacy is not coming back. So what they're doing is they're destroying their own areas because these are just people that want to create, you know, they want to be criminals in the sense of just creating chaos. By creating chaos, some of them probably don't even care about the immigrants. They just want to create chaos. I think this is a big problem. I think by stoking the flames, these mayors, that's unfortunate. You know, there should be a law passed by the Congress to do something against these people that stoke these flames. I mean, if you're encouraging it, gosh, you know, you say, hey, my mayor encourages this. You know, why would you want a mayor like that? And again, you know, why would you reelect somebody like that basically just wants to, you know, allow crime in the city and do the wrong thing if we're a society of the rule of law?
Do you have some examples of what you're seeing on the business side as shop owners begin to adjust to less fear and a somewhat more peaceful environment?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, so, you know, they want less fear in many cases in a lot of these neighborhoods, right? So what you're seeing is that, you know, they're actually, it's making it difficult for the shopper to go into some of these stores. Now you're seeing some of the things in cages. They're behind glass walls. You know, depending on the crime area in some of these neighborhoods. I mean, you know, they've taken every precaution they can, but ultimately they can be overwhelmed. Again, if the local authorities don't participate to try to thwart this type of crime, it's unfortunate. You know, it's too bad for these smaller businesses that ultimately pay the price, and these are just law-abiding, you know, guys who are just trying to make a living for their families and being disrupted by people that just want to be lawless.
What can we do is the question that we're most often asked. So before we go, what should our viewers know if they want to help make things better? Are there ways they can help?
Call your member of Congress. Yeah, call your member of Congress. Call your local officials. Tell them this is an outrage. We don't want this to happen. You send them letters, bother them, and tell them pass a law to stop this outrage, to stop the stoking of flames by elected leaders in these sanctuary cities everywhere, to have penalization, to stop funding federal funds, sending federal funds to these cities that don't cooperate. Hit them with a wallet, right in their wallet until they cooperate. That's what I would do, is call the people that are in charge that you've put in office. And if the people that are in office are the ones that are causing the problem, do everything you can to get them out of office. support the opposing candidates, support the opposing counsel to ensure that they are removed, either helped or removed.
Did I understand your recommendation, no federal funds to these sanctuary cities?
Absolutely. That needs to happen immediately. No federal funds to sanctuary cities that do not help our law enforcement officials or are against them. That will immediately start solving the problem right away.
Well, Nelson Balido, thank you for sharing your time with us today. Let's stay in touch as things improve across these next few months.
Always great being with you. Thank you again.
Well, in a moment, some hopeful thoughts of my own. Stay with us. I'll be right back. Hey, I want to give you a personal invitation to join my podcast, Culture and Christianity.
For a person to think that the Bible is not political, you don't know the Bible.
We're trying to understand how to take our faith outside the walls of the church and live it out in the marketplace.
He will show you what to do, whether it's in our communities, in our country, or other places in the world.
So I brought in some friends, some people that are trying to do this.
How could anyone call themselves Christian and be pro-choice? Is beyond my comprehension.
But I think he wanted them open and in need of him every day.
We have been living through a season of unprecedented deception, propaganda, manipulation.
Everybody says, Israel is attacking schools in the Gaza Strip.
I want to be a part of seeing culture and Christianity intersect. Hope you enjoy the podcast. You know, Jesus warned us that one of the characteristics of the end of the age is lawlessness, and that the love in the hearts of people, God's people, would grow cold. We've seen evidence of that all around us. The previous administration said that our border was secure, and the legacy media happily passed along that narrative, which they knew to be false. Millions came through our open border. We don't know who came in. We don't know to whom they were attached. Children were being trafficked across our borders, sold into sexual slavery in unprecedented numbers. Many were put to work illegally, forced to labor in dangerous conditions. There was a recent report from the Department of Homeland Security that stated that immigration enforcement officials are unable to effectively track the whereabouts of more than 600,000 unaccompanied children who crossed the southern border since 2019. And now we have mayors of major American cities resisting enforcement of law and order. It's unsettling to see these leaders determine boldly, brazenly, unapologetically that they're not going to even recognize federal laws. Well, I would suggest that if they're going to reject federal law, then they should not have federal support. So how did we arrive at this place? Well, it shouldn't be so surprising. We've all either conveniently looked away or we've just said there's nothing we can do. Well, the church hasn't had the courage to talk about biblical perspectives. And as long as the behavior begins with illegal, I would submit to you, we shouldn't encourage it or support it. That's not compassion, that's lawlessness. And lawlessness is not a sign from the Spirit of God. When we as Christ followers finally conclude that spiritual forces are more real than any other force, then we'll realize that we must lead with our faith. Let's not be afraid to talk about Jesus. Let's not be afraid to talk about what's happening in our culture and what should happen from a biblical worldview. If we'll do that, I promise you there's more reasons for hope than despair. We'll be right back with your emails. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us this evening. Just a reminder, if you miss a live broadcast, you can always go to ajnow.com. There's an easy link there. You can send us an email. You can share an episode with a friend. It makes a difference. Your emails are always a highlight. Jared from Sanderson, Florida wrote, "You know what would be smart, Pastor? Some official or Trump himself coming out on national news and tell the illegal immigrants, if you want to stay in America, join our military. It's just a thought. Thanks." Well, I bet that would make Secretary Hegseth happy. He would exceed his recruitment numbers, and I know we'd hear about that. Ralph E. wrote, commenting on those fighting illegal removal, human nature hasn't changed. Given the choice, they still demand that Barabbas be released. It's a pretty insightful comment. Some of you will remember that the inhabitants of Jerusalem had a choice from the Roman governor to release Barabbas, an insurrectionist, or Jesus of Nazareth, and they chose Barabbas. The outcome of that is for 2 millennia, a series of treacherous rebels have ruled over the inhabitants of Jerusalem until recent decades. It's a nice reminder that you and I have a choice between order or lawlessness. We should consider very carefully our choice. We will reap the harvest of it. Kim S. commented, so thankful for the episode with Congressman Owens and his emphasis on how family, as God designed it, impacts each of us personally in our communities, creating a positive culture beneficial to all. It was encouraging to hear of all the efforts being made to give children an opportunity for a good education. I agree. Congressman Owens was a bright breath of fresh air. There are good things happening in the world. We can't lose sight of those. Don't focus on the negative. Be sure to celebrate the good things you see God doing in your life. And finally, Rosemarie from Washington. Pastor Allen, I want to thank you for your ministry and for changing my life on how to follow our Lord and Savior. The Lord blessed me when I was looking for someone who spoke the truth to what is happening in time and what the Word has to say about it. He brought me to your ministry, and for that, I praise the Lord. Well, Rosemarie, thank you for your kind words. I'm grateful for this network that has the courage to let us talk about current events from a biblical worldview. There's a host of people that help make this program possible. They push me out in front of the lights, but I assure you, I just reflect a lot of very wise, hardworking, talented people who care about holding up a biblical worldview in this culture. You're not alone. Working together, I believe we can make decisions and share the truth that can bring the blessing of God to our lives, to our children, our grandchildren. That's worth a few minutes of time, and that's worth using our time and energy for. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us today. God's moving in the earth. Don't lose sight of that. God bless you, and you have a good evening.